The wind carried the scent of juniper and dust down from the ridges, whispering through the mesquite like a voice half-remembered. It was late autumn in the Llano Estacado, and the sun had dipped low enough to cast the land in that peculiar amber that turned even gunmetal into gold. He rode alone, as he always had since the war, his horse a lean roan with a dull eye and a hitch in its gait. Neither of them were young anymore, but they moved with the grim purpose of men and beasts who had outlived too much to turn back. His name was Isaac Wade. Folks in the territories east of Pecos knew it well enough to keep their voices low when they said it. He'd been a bounty man once, a soldier before that. His hands bore the proof of both trades, one finger crooked from a saber wound, a scar across the palm where a Comanche lance had torn through. He didn't drink much, didn't talk much, just followed the names he was given and ended them when he found them. The name, this time, was Me Callahan. He'd gotten it from a man in El Paso, along with a yellowed photograph and the story that set his jaw tight, how she'd helped run guns for Quantrill, how she'd turned coat on a Texas Ranger battalion, how she'd been seen with the outlaw Jacob Fry before he vanished off the map. Rumors, mostly, but enough smoke to chase after. Word was she'd taken her child and holed up near the Caprock, somewhere no one thought to look. Isaac had thought little about the child. He figured if a woman could raise a boy in hiding, she could watch him die the same. There were lines, but his were faded. The war did that. He found the place 2 days later, just shy of dusk. A low homestead made of sod and stone, half-eaten by the prairie. Smoke rose from the chimney, pale and thin. Chickens scratched at the packed dirt yard. A horse stood hobbled near the fence, its ribs showing. It looked like any other poor soul's shelter in the frontier, built not for beauty, but to keep the wind out and the wolves away. Isaac dismounted quiet, rifle slung low. He moved with the silence of a man whose boots had never forgotten blood. He came up the side of the house, heart steady, breath even. Through the chink in the wall, he saw her. She stood in the center of the room, back to the door, her dark hair tied with a faded red ribbon. She held the child to her chest, a boy maybe 2 or 3. The fire crackled low, casting soft shadows across her face. She sang in a voice worn like the hem of an old dress, something gentle and high and tremulous. The tune wasn't one Isaac recognized, but it hit something inside him all the same. Not a memory exactly, but the ache of one. He gripped the rifle tighter. The child stirred against her. She hushed him with her lips to his crown, swaying as she sang. Her voice wavered, but not with fear. It was the kind of singing meant to keep nightmares at bay, not men. Isaac's hand dropped. He stepped back into the dusk, the dirt beneath his boots holding its breath. The wind rose. And for the first time in 15 years, he didn't know what to do. He slept the first night beneath a pinon tree a half-mile from her land, rifle propped against his knee, though he never touched it. The stars out here felt heavier somehow, like stones hung from heaven on invisible thread. Coyotes yipped far off, but none came close. In his dream, he was back on the banks of the little blue river, the water thick with red silt and smoke, the bodies of men and horses tangled in the reeds. When he woke, his palms were clenched into fists around nothing. At dawn he rose, watered the horse, and lit no fire. He waited, watched. She came out in the morning light, sleeves rolled, skirt hitched at the knees for walking. The boy toddled after her in bare feet, chasing chickens, laughter like a sparrow's song. She worked without haste, mending a fence, gathering eggs, sweeping the porch with a bundle of mesquite twigs. She sang again, but softer now, half to herself. There was no one else. No guard, no man, just her and the boy and a dog too old to bark. It struck him then how much labor a single body could carry. The house was tidy. The land, what little there was, kept decent. No signs of fear or flight, just endurance. He watched her strip bark from a branch, tie it with cord, and fashion a sling for hauling kindling. Her hands were roughened with work, but gentle when she took the boy into her arms again. He left before she could see him, rode south, just far enough to find a creek, and sat beside it for an hour thinking. There been a girl once, Sarah, back in Missouri, brown-eyed, warm-skinned, quick to laughter. She'd waited for him through 2 winters of cavalry. He came home the 3rd year to find her married to his cousin, a baby at her hip. Said she thought him dead. Said she waited longer than most would have. He never asked for more than truth. She gave him just enough of it to break him. That had been the last time he thought of settling. After that came Kansas, then New Mexico, then years where no place had his name written on it. Just trails and tracks and the endless hunt. He returned to the ridge near dusk, hidden again in the fold of the hill. This time, he brought no rifle. Inside the sod house, the fire was lit. The boy sat on the floor with a wooden horse, his hands too small yet too sure. She knelt beside him, sewing what looked like a new shirt from scraps. Her shoulders slumped in a way that betrayed exhaustion, not the kind that sleep fixes, but the kind that lingers day after day like a weight sewn into your bones. He watched until the lamp burned low and she carried the boy to bed. After, she sat alone by the hearth, staring into the flames. She did not sing. Her face, lit by flickering light, was unreadable. Isaac felt the cold creep into his coat. He didn't move. He didn't leave. He just sat there, on the edge of her life, not yet a ghost, not yet a man. When the fire went out, and the stars wheeled overhead, he knew he could no longer claim to be hunting her. She was no traitor, no outlaw. She was a mother with no one but a child who needed her. And somehow that made it harder than any kill he'd ever been paid to make. 3 days passed. He hunted rabbits and dressed them clean, left them near her well before first light, said nothing, left no sign, just meat wrapped in burlap tied with a bit of twine. She took them without question, though once she stepped out from her door and scanned the brush with narrowed eyes. The dog sniffed the air but didn't bark. Maybe it knew what Isaac had not yet admitted to himself, that some men come to kill, and some come to remember what it is to be human again. He should have gone, packed up, rode north and told the man in El Paso she was dust and nothing more. He could have named a price, taken the coin, moved on. But he didn't. Instead, on the 4th morning, he rode down the hill with the sun behind him, slow and sure, as if he were any traveler looking for water and a place to rest. His hat pulled low, his hands easy on the reins. She saw him coming before the dog did. She didn't run, didn't reach for a gun. Just stood at the edge of her porch, the boy tucked behind her leg, a hand on his crown. Isaac reined in 10 yards from her gate. The silence between them stretched out wide and taut like a drying hide. "You alone?" she asked. He nodded. "You law?" "No, ma'am." She studied him like a woman who knew the weight of lies and the sound they made when they hit the floor. "You lost?" "No." The boy peeked out at him with wide, solemn eyes, dirt on his cheeks, a bit of bread in one hand. "I don't take in strangers." "Didn't ask you to," he said. "Just needed water." She gave a small nod, a stiff one, and turned. He followed her to the well, drew it himself, drank from his canteen, said thank you, though she hadn't offered. "You the one left the meat." "I was." A pause, the wind picked up, carrying the first bite of winter. "Wise. Seemed like you could use it." She looked past him then, toward the ridge, the road beyond it, the lives she'd put behind her. He wondered what stories still haunted her, who she'd lost, who she'd run from, and how much of it had been for the boy now hiding behind her skirts. He wanted to say something about how he'd come to end her, how her name had been written on a paper meant for blood, but the words stuck, dried up in his throat. "I don't got much," she said, "but I can pay you for the meat, trade maybe." "Don't need payment." Her eyes narrowed. "Don't mistake me for a charity case." "I don't," he said. "You ain't." She didn't speak after that, just turned, took the boy inside, and left the door half open. Isaac didn't follow, not then. He found a stump near the fence and sat with his hat in his hands. The dog came to sniff him once, then lay down at his feet with a grunt. An old sentinel welcoming an older one. He stayed through the morning, helped patch a corner of the chicken coop when it leaned too hard against the wind, said little, watched her out of the corner of his eye. She moved like someone who'd never stopped listening for boots in the dark. He recognized that kind of silence. He carried it too. By nightfall, she brought him a plate of beans and cornbread and set it down without a word. When he looked at her, she said, "Eat or don't, makes no difference to me." But he knew better. He ate every bite. And in the quiet that followed, with the boy asleep and the stars creeping up again, she sat across from him by the dying fire. "You got a name?" she asked. "Isaac." She nodded once. "Me," she said, "that's mine." It wasn't forgiveness, wasn't trust. But it was a beginning. Winter came early that year. The first snow fell quiet as breath, blanketing the flats in a hush that made even the coyotes pause. It melted by midday, but left a taste in the air, something clean and cold that seeped into the bones. Isaac stayed on, wordless about why. He built a linta beside the shed and lined it with cedar branches, saying he didn't like roofs that weren't his. Me didn't argue. She just watched him like a hawk might from a distance, uncertain whether he meant safety or storm. He never asked about the boy, and she never offered. But the child, curious in the way of all the young, took to trailing Isaac from chore to chore, dragging a stick like a sword, watching him mend the corral, chop kindling, patch the roof when a corner came loose in a windstorm. Isaac taught him how to hold a hammer, how to walk soft so rabbits didn't spook, taught him the names of trees by their bark. The boy listened, eyes round and solemn, nodding like each word was a treasure he meant to keep. Me watched, arms crossed, but she didn't stop it. Some nights Isaac would sit by the porch sharpening his knife, the boy beside him with a wooden spoon pretending to do the same. Me would hum a tune inside, one she never sang aloud anymore. Her voice had gone quieter with each passing week, like something inside her was shrinking into itself. She still worked with the fury of someone afraid to slow down, but the weight she carried sat heavier on her shoulders. One night the boy woke screaming. Isaac heard it from his lean-to and was at the door before he thought to knock. Me stood in the doorway, her face pale, eyes sharp. "It's all right," she said. Isaac didn't move. "He just has bad dreams sometimes." Isaac looked past her. The child clung to a wool blanket, shaking, eyes wide and unfocused. "I can help," Isaac said, softer than he'd ever spoken in years. Me hesitated, then stepped aside. Inside, the fire was low. Isaac sat cross-legged beside the boy, said nothing. Just handed him a carved horse he'd whittled from scrap pine the day before. The boy clutched it tight. His breathing slowed. "Sometimes," Isaac said, voice low, "the bad dreams don't go away, but they get quieter if you don't fight 'em." The boy stared at him. "Like wolves, they follow you longer when you run." He tucked the blanket closer around the child and stood. Me hadn't moved. Her hands trembled at her sides. "He ain't mine," she said then, barely above a whisper. Isaac looked at her. "His mother died during the crossing, fever. I buried her by a dry creek in Kansas. I took him, couldn't leave him." Her voice broke like thin ice. "I didn't know what I was doing, still don't. I just kept going." Isaac didn't speak, just looked at her in the low firelight, saw her not as a fugitive, but as a woman carved hollow by grief and trying to fill that space with love she didn't know how to name. "You did right," he said finally. "I don't know if I did." "You did." Silence hung heavy between them, but it was warmer now. Not the silence of fear, but of two people holding different ends of the same story. She turned away, wiped her face with the back of her sleeve. "You still staying?" she asked. He nodded. "For a while, if you'll have me." She didn't answer. But when he stepped out into the snowlight, the door remained open behind him a little longer than before. The days folded into each other, stitched with frost and breath and the quiet rituals that tether lives together. Mornings began before the sun rose, with me stoking the stove and Isaac hauling water. The boy, his name was Daniel, she said at last, grew bolder, riding Isaac's shoulders like a watchman and asking questions that came faster than either adult could answer. He wanted to know why the stars moved, why the wind moaned through the chimney, whether the carved horse could gallop when they weren't looking. Isaac, for all his silences, answered him with patience he didn't know he had. Me started leaving the door open wider. Not once did Isaac ask why her name had been passed down to men who killed for silver. Not once did she confess the weight behind it. They circled it, each carrying their piece of the truth like broken glass hidden in a pocket, sharp and always close. But the longer he stayed, the less it seemed to matter. There were fences to mend, a storm cellar to reinforce, a stove pipe to clean. And nights when me brought out a jar of peach preserves she'd rationed since last summer, and shared it in silence that felt like something sacred. Then came the riders. 3 of them, spurs jingling and eyes like dry wells, rode in just past noon while me was in the root cellar and Isaac was fixing a shutter that banged in the wind. They came easy, like men sure of their place in the world, guns slung low, laughter brittle. Isaac stepped out slow, hands empty. One of them, a man with a scar like a whip mark across his jaw, tipped his hat. "Afternoon," Didn't expect to see a stranger out this far. Was just passing through, Isaac said. That's so, this place belongs to a me Callahan, don't it? Isaac didn't answer. The man's smile vanished. We're looking for her, friendly call. Isaac knew that tone, heard it in saloons before blood hit the floor. She's not here, he said. That a fact. The second man, younger, shifted in his saddle. Who are you to her? Isaac stepped forward, not much, just enough to draw a line. She's under my protection. That hung in the air like a hammer. The scarred man looked him over again, slower this time. You a bounty. Not anymore. The man leaned forward, eyes narrowing. You know what she did. Isaac's voice didn't waver. I know who she is. The man spat. Then you're a fool. They stared at each other, long and still. Isaac's hand hovered near his coat, where the pistol lay holstered against his ribs. He saw the twitch in the younger rider's hand, the way he glanced toward the house. Behind him, Mee had stepped out with the rifle, cradled but not raised. Her face was pale but steady. This ain't your concern no more, the scarred man said to her. She didn't flinch. It never was yours. They watched her, then Isaac, then turned. We'll be back, the scarred man said. Isaac didn't reply, just watched them ride into the wind, dust curling behind their hooves. That night Mee didn't speak. She sat on the porch, rifle across her lap, the boy asleep inside. Isaac sat beside her. You didn't have to do that, she said finally. I did. They'll kill you. Maybe. She looked at him then, really looked, her eyes searching for the thing in him that hadn't yet died. You still haven't asked what I did. I don't need to. Why not? Because I've done worse. That held for a while. Then she said, quiet as snowfall, I killed a man once, not with a gun, with silence. Turned him in to save my skin. He trusted me. He nodded. I was supposed to kill you, he said, just as quiet. That's why I came. She didn't move. I figured. But I saw you singing to him, and I forgot. The wind picked up. She didn't cry, didn't run, just leaned back, eyes to the sky, lips parted like she was trying to breathe for the first time in months. They didn't come in the night. Isaac waited anyway, sat by the door with his coat wrapped tight, the fire burning low, rifle across his lap. The house breathed with sleep behind him, Mee curled in the bed she'd given up for Daniel, the child nestled between old quilts that smelled of cedar and smoke. Outside, the wind whispered low and mean through the cottonwoods. The moon rode high, silver and unblinking. Come morning, nothing stirred but frost. But he knew they'd return. So they prepared. He showed me how to bank the fire low so smoke wouldn't give them away, dug a second foxhole near the shed, reinforced the door with scrap iron and bolts scavenged from the old plow. Mee, for all her doubts, worked without question. She moved like a woman who'd given up running and found her teeth again. Daniel didn't understand why the world felt sharper now, but he followed Isaac with fierce trust. The carved horse rarely left his hand. The riders came on the third day. 5 this time. Isaac saw them crest the hill at dawn, long shadows behind them, guns ready. He had no illusions, they wouldn't ask twice. Mee took position near the cellar, rifle braced across the stacked woodpile. Isaac stood in the yard, hands at his sides. The wind tugged at his coat, lifting the edges like wings. They didn't speak, not at first, just fanned out, boots crunching over the hard earth. The scarred man dismounted last. Told you we'd be back. Isaac said nothing. You gonna die for her. She's already paid more than any of you ever will. The man sneered. Men like you don't change, you just die slower. Isaac drew first. The yard exploded in noise and smoke. 2 dropped before they could clear leather. Mee's shot split the wind, catching one in the thigh. He screamed, clutching the wound as he fell into the dust. The 4th man panicked, ran for the gate, but Isaac's second round caught him clean in the back. The scarred man stood alone now, pistol raised, eyes wide. "You don't even know what she did," he shouted. Isaac stepped forward, blood streaked across his coat. "I know what she is. She's a liar, a traitor." Isaac lowered his weapon. "She's a mother." The man screamed and raised his pistol. Me's bullet hit him before he could fire. It was over in seconds. Afterward, they buried the dead in a line beneath the ridge. Me said no prayers. Isaac marked the graves with stone. The snow fell that night again, gentler than before. Inside, Daniel slept curled against Isaac's side, the boy's breath soft and warm. Me sat across from them, her face hollow with the weight of it all, but her eyes were steady. "What happens now?" she asked. Isaac looked at her. "I reckon we make a life." She let the words settle, then nodded. Not a yes, not a promise. But enough. In the weeks that followed, the days found rhythm again. They planted late winter seeds and fixed what the gunfight broke. Isaac built a proper fence. Me taught Daniel to read from a Bible missing half its pages. The wind still came and the coyotes still cried, but inside that house, something new had taken root. Not peace, not yet, but something close enough to grow from. And some nights when the fire burned low and the boy was safe in sleep, me sang again, not always in tune, not always loud. But Isaac never forgot the sound.